We can do better.
Well, yeah, but we haven't.
They're doing better than Boston.
Alaska, 40 degrees today.
Then they make it a big, but that's not unusual.
For Alaska at this time of year?
Yeah.
I thought they were talking about the jet stream moving, so Alaska was warm and Michigan's the new Alaska.
Alaska's warm out there where Fairbanks is because of the ocean currents, which come up through there all the time.
Huh.
It's not unusual for,
So Fairbanks is a kind of a tropic zone.
compared to us.
Right now, it's fun today.
Call the public hearing to order. And you have anything here for the public hearing, some discussion?
Yeah, I think, if you don't mind, I'll give like a premise. So,
Okay.
purpose of the public hearing today is once again to field any questions or public comment about the proposed downtown development authority that will encompass north M66 and all abutting properties to the limits, the city limits, and then heading south and all the way running east to west through Main Street. And all abutting properties, both a block north and a block south, and then running south along M66 to the city limits. So that's the proposed DDA zone. Do we have any questions or public comment about the proposed zone or what a DDA is supposed to do? Anything along those lines?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm not gonna go ahead, but the, how many residences in that area?
I am not certain how many actual residences are in the actual proposed zone. So the only sections actually zoned residential, if any, are the block south and block north of East and West Main Street.
Yeah, that could be quite, but that could be quite a few households, isn't it, couldn't it?
I think it's a fair number, yes.
How are you gonna handle the, I mean, are you gonna propose a residence committee, is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah, and we'll also, obviously, we'll be having at least one representative on the DDA board that represents the residential aspects of the DDA zone.
I looked at the letter, and I guess the letter that was sent, and it indicates that that it's gonna use a TIF, right?
That's the initial plan, yeah, but obviously, once we recruit a board after the resolution is enacted and filed with the Secretary of State, the first job of that board is to put together a DDA plan, which they have several funding options, but the initial intention is to utilize TIF capture.
And I understand, I'm just, in the letter, it indicates that no additional taxes, for instance, would be levied, but that would be one of the possibilities that they could do, correct?
There is a stipulation in Public Act 197 that a millage could be raised, but that's very unusual and it's not our intention.
Well, then, how, maybe I'm off, if the downtown development board is going, I mean, also in the resolution, it indicates, and from the tone of my questions, don't take it that I'm necessarily opposed, I'm truly inquisitive, but in section 2, it says that the city commission is going to decide how the funding is going to be.
They have to approve the recommendations based on the DDA board. So they have to sign off on the DDA plan, the proposed DDA plan that the elected or the appointed board puts together before it goes off to the Secretary of State.
But only if there's a TIF.
Only if there's a TIF, given the way the resolution is written.
No, I mean, the TIF requires the plan, the plan, otherwise the downtown development agency doesn't have to have a plan. At least if I read the statute right, they only have to have it if they're going to have.
If they're going to pursue tax increment financing.
Yes.
My understanding is that all DDA boards that are going to utilize any sort of funding mechanism have to put together and file with the Secretary of State a TIF plan.
Okay.
Or I mean a DDA plan, excuse me. And that's my understanding of Public Act 197, so.
Okay, I'm wondering, how is that gonna affect, for instance, the library?
So the library, if I'm not mistaken, is a district library and is tax exempt. But are they a tax authority, if I'm not mistaken? Do they collect tax?
Mm-hmm.
No?
No, the county has a countywide library, so
So it would take, I mean, we would collect tax increment from the county, but not directly from the library, if my understanding is correct.
Well, indirectly, they won't get the money.
Well, any tax increment, yeah, would go towards those.
And I know that in general, that when you vote these in, I understand at least my purpose, but I guess I'd be interested to know, what does the city commission see as what they hope to achieve downtown?
Okay.
Assuming we're talking about, I mean, while my office is on the end, the north side, almost at least up towards the limits, and I never have considered it downtown. I certainly understand it's within the thing, but what are you hoping to accomplish downtown? I mean, it's not necessarily specific, but more than generality.
Sure, and just for my own edification, can you say what office are we talking about?
My house is directly across the street from the courthouse.
Okay.
DC Pizza.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm relatively new to the area.
Yeah, I
apologize.
understand. Yeah, I understand.
Perfect. So really, the goal and scope of the DDA is to provide a special fund for opportunities for development of the downtown area or within the DDA zone. You know, the plan is going to depend a lot on what the specific developments look like, so obviously I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but, you know, common DDA funds are used for things such as facade grants for business owners, so matching funds in the event you want to make any improvements to your frontage on your office, beautification and landscaping measures, streetscaping, community lighting. There's really quite a few different endeavors that the DDA could undergo and stand that I think we would benefit from directly in the downtown area. There's really limitless possibilities given the fact that the funding is restricted, but when it comes to the capital development of downtown as well as the beautification sort of community development piece, there's a lot of different projects we have in mind.
When you say the funds are restricted, what do you mean?
So, Public Act 197s, if we do implement a TIF plan, so obviously it sounds like you've read up on how that tax increment financing works. What would really happen in that case is that those funds would go into a separate account in our general budget. And those funds are then restricted to uses that are approved in Public Act 197 and are specific to the DDA zone geographically. So we would be limited in what we could do with that money. Same way we're limited with enterprise funds, like sewer and water would be a good example. We can really only utilize those for related projects to the enterprise.
Can you give, and I'm inquisitive because I don't know, but what would be, give me an example which you couldn't do with the money?
Raise our salaries.
That's terrible, like that.
And you know, this is a common.
Unless you get hired by the DDA, but that'd be another matter, but go ahead.
And this is a common question. So one thing that we can't do, and this is interesting because it really gets into the public domain versus private domain, public property versus public realm. And one thing that those Public Act 197 prohibits is the interior improvements of those downtown businesses. So say you decide that you're going to paint your inner walls. We can't do anything to help you out with that. Or say you're going to knock a wall out and add an adjacent room. We can't use those funds for that kind of thing. But we can utilize matching funds for facade improvements that do clear benefit to the public realm, so outside.
How about an incubator fund? Can it be used for that?
In some cases, DDAs can, I think Edmore's actually a good example, utilize what's called a revolving loan fund. So say we did down the line get a lot of good TIF capture and we had a reasonable amount coming in revenues. Some places do elect to offer loans to either businesses that want to make capital improvements or businesses that want to come into town. And there's a certain legal process that you have to go through to set up a revolving loan fund as a special use fund through public governance.
I'm wondering, being that the board members would not be, they're not elected, for instance, like looking where my location is, I would think there's an inherent conflict between people who have property, for instance, where I am, and the people downtown. Because my property, maybe not, it hasn't been lately, but I mean, it has, at least has more capabilities for use, size, if nothing else. How are you gonna, something less to do with the DDA, but how is the city commission gonna handle the issues about that? Because those are gonna be competing interests that money is gonna be potentially used for.
So can you clarify that?
Sure, like, let's say, Taco Bell decides they wanna buy my property and put a taco place in. Now, the restaurants that are downtown, for instance, they would be foolish to want that. So how are you handle, are you gonna be prepared to, you don't have a lot of oversight once they're in? What do you do? I mean, don't you think that causes problems potentially?
Well, and I guess what I would first say is that it's not that they don't have a lot of oversight, because I would be acting as a go-between and advisor to the DDA board, and all DDA board members have to be approved by this commission. So, given the fact that there is a sense of conscientious appointment, I think that would be a very common public sector oversight measure. When it comes to conflicts of interest like that, I think it would, so if I'm understanding you correctly, if one development and one property within the DDA zone were to contradict the best interest of potentially a board member, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that the development potential for, not so much south of town, but even there potentially, south and north of town is substantially different than the true downtown. As I said initially, I never considered myself part of the downtown area where I was. And the reason is that I think our interests are different. I mean, for instance, if you want to look at it specifically, you talk about having the clock and things, that piece is downtown, the streetscape, all of that stuff has always been historically downtown. And I think the development for a downtown area, the old downtowns, if you will, is different than it is north of town. Quite frankly, it's people who have places north and south of town that cause the downtown to have difficulty. So how do you balance those? And that's what I wonder.
Well, I think, one of the reasons that we elected to restart this process and extend the DDA zone to those limits is because we are looking to try to create a cohesive business community and open the door not only for opportunities for growth in those sections, but also open the door to potential opportunities for improvements to those business owners that are outside of what you're defining as our sort of traditional downtown. It's a small enough community that our business sector is fairly linear, and while you may have Main Street, I would still consider your section of town as well as the south side of town a very crucial component to our commercial facilities. And as you've said yourself, there are different demographics for development in both sides of town as well as the core of downtown. I mean, you're looking more at an infill situation where you are, whereas you're looking more for a redevelopment situation down here. But the DDA can be a benefit to both of those exclusively. It doesn't necessarily play into the role of the private sector competition you're talking about. It's designed to be equally opportunistic for anybody who is eligible to take advantage of it, in whatever that definition is, and if it's approved by the board of the DDA, as well as the city commission. So I think in the spirit of Public Act 197, it's designed to be an opportunity for revitalization of business districts. That's really long and short of what it is. So while I do understand that you think there's different considerations, and I think you're right, where you're located and in the core of downtown, I think both areas of town stand to benefit from what we're trying to do here.
Come on, I don't want to monopolize it. I'm sorry. Somebody...
No, I appreciate that. I'm happy someone showed up.
Well, do you have any guesstimation of what kind, I mean, obviously it depends on advances, but do you have any projections of what kind of money you expect to be sitting in the kitty?
Yeah, and I definitely don't want to tell tales out of school right there, because as this obviously works, and as you just cited, as tax values go up, we capture the increment within that zone. So, Janet, do you happen to remember offhand, not to put you on the spot, what the DDA was collecting per annum before it? And it was over $150,000, I thought.
Right, that
was a long time
was,
ago.
yeah, things were
Good.
good.
Yeah, I mean,
the economy was a lot
tax.
better then.
Yeah, and we are starting to see slight increases, so it is my hope we start to see some modest funding when we're reassessed. To get up into that kind of range, it's going to take a course of years. So a good example is the Lakeview DDA, where I'm also a manager. That's been long-standing, and they capture somewhere around $125,000 a year. So, and they have long-standing running grant programs. So they run a facade grant where they offer matching funds to businesses. They have an application period, just like any other grant that would be offered by the state or the federal system. And then they utilize that money for improvements to the downtown zone or business districts that benefit the entire business community. And I will mention also, you know, they have, I'm sure you've been to Lakeview, they have a downtown corridor right there, that main section of Lincoln, but they stretch their DDA all the way down to 46, because there's equal benefit to all business owners that way, if that makes sense.
I understand it.
And I completely understand where the questions are coming from, because it is a different development model out where you are as opposed to where downtown is. But, you know, that's the beauty of this act, is that it doesn't necessarily stipulate the difference in development model. What it stipulates is how we can use that money. But I think with the situation of Stanton, there's potential benefits to every business owner within that zone. And residences, because if the healthier the business and commercial districts, the higher their property values. So.
How do you anticipate that you would then allow the DDA, for instance, in year 1 to maybe even longer to borrow, to access the potential revenues? Do you anticipate allowing that?
Well, that's not my decision to make, but I wouldn't advise that. I mean, I wouldn't want to put an organizational component in debt before it even, it's never guaranteed any revenue. You know what I mean? For all we know, the housing bubble could pop again, and that thing would not make any money for a long time. And that's the possibility that faces all of these downtown development authorities. And that's why you saw some of them disband in the 2008 to 2010 region, because they weren't making any money. The revenues were dropping to the point where it made more sense for them to just get out. But no, I don't anticipate, and I would never recommend as best practice incurring debt with no revenue incoming. That being said, if we did have healthy revenue incoming on an annual basis, say 6 figures of some sort, and we do want to levy some of our DDA fundings towards a capital project, you know, in certain situations, it would make sense to take out bonds through the DDA for larger projects that we would pay off over time. And that's a very common practice as well.
Lastly, and it's kind of a two-part question, it seems to me, and I'll grant you this is my opinion, but one of the issues with the particularly core downtown is that you have buildings that are not being utilized and are not, and maybe neglected. Is one of the things that downtown development has the authority to do is to acquire properties, but how about the commission's ability to use the eminent domain power to get them?
I will say it is much easier for the DDA to purchase a property and refurb it and then basically spec building it, which is a really common practice with downtown development authorities, than it would be for us to try to utilize eminent domain and acquire it. You know, there's other simple fee ways for municipalities like ourselves to acquire properties. A lot of times if they go back on taxes, we get first at bats, that kind of thing. But this is actually, you're citing a tool that's going to be useful for the city and its toolkit for rehabbing and filling storefronts, which down the line, if this DDA does become healthy, which I'm anticipating it will given current market trends, that'll be a tool in our toolkit in the event that we do have, you know, downtown amenities that we want to fill and we can't find the right developer. Maybe we do pick those properties up and make some slight modifications and make them more desirable. Those are all components that a DDA can be used for. So down the line, it might be that that's what we do. And I do know that there are a lot of communities, both large and smaller, like this one, that do a lot of purchasing of properties and rehabbing of properties and then selling them at a market gain, which actually benefits the city with new revenue and new investment. So that's where we hope to get down the line, but that's going to be a long time coming.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a nice exchange.
Any other public comment, discussion? Then I will adjourn.
Move adjourned.
All right. A motion? Support. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Thank you very much. I'd like to call to order now the regular meeting of the Stanton. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mtg1, Burris,
Here.
Riley,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Yoder, Corwin,
Here.
King, here.
Thank you. As we look over the agenda, we need to add on the agenda the bills. And that'll, understanding items, correct?
Will the agenda be approved as
Forward. I want to add something to it. Want to try to have a discussion on having the clergy in the area come and open our meetings with a prayer, like they do up to the county commissioners meeting.
So item 3 under new business.
Yes.
Any other additions or changes to the agenda?
will the agenda be approved as amended?
Support.
Motion support, in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Silence because? Okay. So we're at public comments. Public? Comment was no comment. Standing items, the minutes of February 10th.
Will the meeting minutes be approved?
Got a motion? Support. Support. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right. Bills? Grand total is $9,759.12.
Make a motion, we pay the bills as syndicated.
Got a motion?
Support.
Got a second? Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Thank you. And it puts us down to reports. Department of Public Works. Jeff's not here today.
Yeah, he's on vacation.
Huh.
He said he had nothing to add to that
I
report.
thought we only did that once every 15 years. Any questions you want to give to Jake about the DPW report? Okay. Moving on then, we have police report on our agenda. You have anything for us today, Joe?
Just, I think probably because of the cold weather, family fights are on the increase, we're having a weekly.
Domestic squabbles?
Yeah. During the day and at night.
And cabin fever. Hopefully there's no violence with the squabbles.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
And you weren't supposed to say that. All right, thank you, Joe. Any questions for our police chief? All right, moving on then, city manager's report.
Just a quick run through, the RFQ for the park project successfully went out. I believe it's in your board packet. Did I put that in the board packet? Okay, and if you have any questions on that, feel free to let me know. 5 Michigan-based firms were solicited, and we'll try to narrow that down to 3 here at this table to call back for interviews based on the statements that they submit. Fundraising is going well for the clock. The most recent commitment was a $2,000 donation from Sydney State Bank, which is our largest single donation to date. Jim Paris, President and CEO, he wanted to be here tonight, but he had a previous engagement. So a formal thank you has been sent to all the donors, but a special thank you to Sydney State Bank. Had a good meeting with the owners over at PromoQuip, and we went and called on the neighbors of that lot just to make sure things were on the up and up, and we're going to have another conversation with one neighbor, but other than that, people seem to be fine with the fact they're coming in, and that's a good thing. This is kind of crucial to the city, or relevant to the city considering we're a funding member, but I've been asked to be the chair of the Fund Development Committee for the Montcalm Economic Alliance. Essentially what I'll be responsible for is fundraising endeavors and trying to make sure that we continue that funding in perpetuity as opposed to the 3-year or 1-year commitments we have right now. That's going to be really cool because it's going to make this a much more collaborative county to work in. I mean, it's going to cross sectors. We're going to be knocking on the doors of private, public, nonprofit, and really trying to bring everybody together to make this a better community. So I'm excited about that.
Well, you're a manager of half the county, aren't you?
Not half, but not yet.
Not yet.
No, I'm very happy where I'm at. I have no desires to take on any more municipalities. I want that on the record.
But I mean, I think it's a great opportunity to get you out knowing the community and all the players in the community as well, but I'm concerned about, the time commitment related to a new position that you've got.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and it is, I actually kind of considered that as well before accepting. But the meetings are held in the middle of the day, the Alliance meetings every other month, right down at the ISD, and I'm here on the days that they're held anyway. So the plan is to just have the funding committee that I'm putting together meet a half hour before and kind of go over, and then in the off months of the Economic Alliance, because they've switched to meeting quarterly, we'll do bi-monthly meetings where we discuss fundraising strategies and potential events that will then pitch to the executive committee. So it's not going to be a huge drain on my time, I don't think, any more than anything else, and I'll have a committee to help me out. So I won't be working alone, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do think it's good, and it was a nice honor for the city that they asked us to get involved in that way, because that's, they're really trying to get that off the ground in a real substantive way.
I know you're excited and energetic, I just don't want you getting over the top.
Oh, you'll be the first to know. You're going great, probably, but, yeah, if, does anybody else have any questions about that? And if it did become too much, I would step down and find someone else to take that spot. All right, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the other two things when we get into the agenda, so I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. Any other questions for the city manager?
The agenda, like,
We had a public hearing, we need to address it in this agenda.
no, I don't believe so, because now that the public hearings culminated, we're entering into the 60-day opt-out period for other tax authorities. Well, same as we were in before we extended the boundaries. So 60 days from now, we will write and pass a resolution of enactment, and then we'll recruit a board, and we'll send all that along to the Secretary of State, and then we'll be good to go.
Okay. I don't see the Parks or the Planning Commission on the agenda in the future. Committee updates? Is that what
Yeah,
you're talking
that's
about?
what it is.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. I see we have no existing business to address tonight, which brings us down to the new business and the appointment of board of review members.
So yeah, we just need every 3 years, or every 3 years we have to reappoint the tax board review members as they stand. They all are planning on returning to my knowledge, so, and they are Ray Holloway, Jay Tanis, and Ed Taylor, I believe. So I think we just need a motion to appoint them. Do we have to do separate motions, Dan, or can we appoint them? No.
I think you can-
So move.
And a motion,
Support.
support, to reappoint the board of review members as mentioned. Any discussion?
That's a 3-year term.
3-year term?
That should probably be it.
Are there other board of review members that are staggered, or is it just
It's
all
just
at
those,
once?
yeah, it's just those 3.
Okay. Okay, call the question then. All in favor of reappointment, say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Opposed, no. Thank you. Congratulations. Item 2 is committee updates.
Right, so we do have an opening to fill in the planning commission. We just filled it, and unfortunately, Carl, he decided to go ahead and step down. Just he's really busy with his new job, and he attended the first planning and zoning course, and he just said there were some philosophical differences, and he felt it was best if he didn't serve on the planning commission, and I thought that was responsible. So, I'm looking for potentially some new blood, so to speak, somebody who's willing to learn and isn't the usual 25 people that we have do a good chunk of the social aspects of the town. If anybody has any recommendations, I'd love to hear them.
So young blood, you don't want any of us here. in
New
favor.
blood, I said. But I meant new blood.
You said new blood.
Okay, yeah.
But
it's not-
Carl stepping down is not necessarily a commissioner you're looking for.
That doesn't have to be, but if anybody who is not currently serving in any other capacity, who would like to learn more about it, I think it would be good, or if you know someone in the community, you know, it doesn't need to be anybody like a business owner or anybody who's otherwise involved. I think it might be better just to have a normal everyday resident that is just a homeowner that lives in Stanton. So if you can think of anybody who's maybe looking to get involved, or you think, I won't have to drag kicking and screaming to get involved, that would be something I'd want to know. And I'd encourage you to shoot me an email or call or swing in.
You say we have an open spot in the class.
We do, and that's,
That class is ongoing now?
yeah, and I've worked a little bit to try to fill that spot. There's 3 more meetings, not counting this week. And that is unfortunate, because that was a $250 cost that we paid, and we don't have anybody filling that spot. So that's my next point. If in the meantime, if anybody wants to attend that class and learn a little bit more about planning and zoning, I think it would be good for the commissioners to broaden their knowledge in that way. So it's Wednesday nights at 6:30 to 9:30 in the ISD. I go as well, and it's a really good class. And we still have the book, so if anybody's interested, I can talk to you afterwards, and we can figure it out. It would be nice to get some of our money's worth out of that.
Yeah. They're not gonna give us a refund, is what you're saying?
They will not, nope.
Okay. Any other questions about the Planning and Zoning Committee, Planning Commission?
I'd like to touch on the Parks and Rec thing too then.
Yeah.
So, as we discussed last time, I'd like to do an in-house Parks and Rec planning process. Another committee I'm going to be wanting to put together is then a Parks and Rec committee. I do have some of the names of members from the 2011 committee that was put together, and I'll be obviously exploring those avenues, but we need, 5 to 9 people, and then we're also going to be putting together some public forums where we're going to be taking just questions and comments about what people think about parks, what they need to look like in Stanton over the course of the coming year, and I'm actually going to hold them out in public. I'm not going to hold them here. So in any way that you think would be, anything that you think would be valuable to that process, or if you have people in mind that would serve, or if you would like to serve, I would like to find 2 commissioners to serve on the Parks and Rec committee. So keep that in mind.
So if we look at one of the assets we have as recreation, is the trail. Looking at regional parks plan, which was in 2011, it was kind of like a key point. Are we looking at maybe expanding our Parks and Rec committee to include someone from the college, someone from the Sydney area, someone from the McBride area, and invite them to participate with us in a regional focus?
That is best practice, to try to not necessarily put people on your committee from those communities, but to tie the planning efforts of those communities in with your own. So the way I kind of see it going is, the brass tacks of the matter is I need people that are going to show up to meetings. So the further afield I fling the committee,
Right.
the more unlikely it is I'm going to get enough people at the table. But that being said, the process calls for initiation of conversation between other communities. So what I'll do is I'll seek out people that can give me input from those communities and designate events where they come to a single evening and come to a single meeting. So we'll definitely incorporate opinions and viewpoints from other neighboring communities, but I really want it to be mostly Stanton residents.